What's the Odyssey about? Homer's Odyssey. It's about a warlord that left his land of Ithaca for a 10-year-long war of Troy and then a 10-year-long journey back home. From this 10-year-long journey back, 3 years he fought monsters, watched all of his men die, descended in the underworld, and 7 years he lived with a goddess, Calypso. Well, nymph of the nymphs, but even Homer calls her sometimes a goddess. So Calypso made Odysseus young. Again, she spoiled him. Good food, good wine, good sex, no wars, no problems, just entertainment. And yet, Homer tells us Odysseus wept every day, sitting on the cliffs, all alone, full tragedy mode. They had an interesting exchange with Calypso. "I'm so incomparably better than your wife Penelope in every aspect," said the goddess. "I know, I like it. No complaints about that," answered Odysseus. "But I just want to go home." And then he wept again. And then, I'm quoting you, Homer here, they enjoyed the sweet lovemaking. I guess Calypso liked it soppy and she liked her guys teary. So what, would say some of you? Odysseus is homesick. He loves his wife, but he just doesn't want to make a goddess jealous, would say others. And any interpretation has its right to exist, for sure. But was Odysseus actually homesick? What is homesickness? Don't worry. We're not going to dive in deep philosophical concepts in this video. You don't know how many challenges await you on your island of Ithaca. If you knew, you'd stay by me, young and immortal, says Calypso. But Odysseus is happy with all the challenges. He answers that he's actually eager to meet all dangers with his chest hardened in troubles, or if you want to translate it the other way, in troubles hardened chest. Choose whatever sounds more poetic to you. So Odysseus, in any way, is eager to suffer. Yeah, because he's so homesick. Again, would repeat some of you. Homesick enough to weep on cliffs for 7 years when he wasn't busy with sweet lovemaking, obviously. I'd say he wanted back his agency. He was a pet on Calypso's islands. He was fed, entertained, and given so much love, because that's the sentence I hear from all the pet owners. "Oh, we give our hrupsel so much love." So the same received Odysseus. He was a pet. And as a pet, he had no agency. And I remind you, once Odysseus was a king, a warlord. His words, his deeds, his decisions mattered. After all, he was the guy who, well, let's say, invented the Trojan horse. His decisions changed the world, but not on Calypso's island. There, he's just a pug, a sad pug crying, probably during lovemaking. So his home is not really a geographical place by that point. It's the way he was. And I've heard that in Nolan's version, Odysseus is plagued with regret for burning Troy, which he wasn't so much in the original, because, and I'm not saying that Christopher Nolan cannot have his interpretation of the story. I'm just saying that Homer's Odysseus regrets bitterly his Odyssey, for sure. He regrets those 3 years of watching his men die and those 7 years of watching the sea and being a pug on Calypso's island. Yes, he definitely regrets 10 years of his journey, but not the 10 years of the war. I would say the ruin of Troy was actually his pride. Again, he regrets his man dying for sure. He regrets those 7 years of being a pug because he finds that deeply emasculating. Again, he lost all his agency, but he regrets of being a bad king. It is to Odysseus, this is how he perceives his man dying and he being helpless, helping them or like saving them. This is a lot about his pride because remember, Homer's Odyssey is a cautionary tale about vanity. Odysseus is vain. So he doesn't love his man. It's not like, oh, my poor man, I love them so much. No, it's like, I'm a king and all my men died, and you can't be king without a court. So you can't be king without an army. And those men were his army. So how are you going to be king if you have no warrior ready to fight for you? So this is the concern for Odysseus. This is about his ego, about his pride, about his vanity. So he regrets being a bad king, but he doesn't regret being a victorious warrior. So after 7 years of pugness, Odysseus is ready for any trouble, any pain that comes its way, just to feel human again, to feel that his actions matter, that he can shape the world, not just observe it. And you know what? So does Penelope. Oh, the faithful Penelope waited for him for 20 years. She was so in love. And I know that Nolan shows it as a big love story. But when you read Homer, again, I would say Nolan can show, and he has the right to show whatever he wants to show. But for Homer, I'm not so sure that Penelope was extremely in love with Odysseus. Why though? She was the queen of Ithaca for 17 years. And only 3 last years she struggled with the suitors, not before. For 17 years she ruled the island the way she saw fit. We might question her rule for sure, because she didn't amass a new army to back her power, she didn't really build up her son, but well, not everybody has a talent for ruling, I guess. But she definitely was her own lady for 17 years. Only after this big period of time, the nobles of Ithaca, Antinous, the most famous of them, and other tiny warlords had the wonderful idea to call Odysseus dead and call themselves Penelope's suitors. To get the crown? To get the girl? Not really. To feed themselves and their men on Odysseus's flocks and drink his wine. It's an interesting question. What went wrong for Penelope and Telemachus that in 17 years they didn't solidify their power? But again, shit happens. Maybe all those 17 years, Eupatus, I don't know how you will pronounce it in English, but let's say Eupatus, the father of Antinous, dreamed of his son becoming the next king of Ithaca and worked his way around the island's nobles. It's very plausible that Penelope is happy with Odysseus coming back for sure, because she hated those so-called suitors and hated Eupatus with his son. And she really doesn't want to acknowledge that Odysseus is indeed her husband, regardless of what her son says, of what their trusted maid says. I'm not saying Penelope in the original hated her husband. No, I truly believe she was rather happy than not. I would say she was very happy because she was right in the middle of troubles with the suitors, and the Odysseus come back at that point was beneficial to her. And yes, Homer is writing that Penelope wept when she started to believe that this beggar here is really her husband Odysseus. But then the first thing she tells him after her, oh, it's really you, is what? How she loved him, how she waited for him? No. She told him about duty. How Helen of Troy allowed herself to forget about her duties, and it led so many to ruin because Helen chose love above duty, and Penelope is better than that. She chooses and will choose duty above love. So, when we look closely at the description Homer uses to show what Penelope felt at that moment, she was happy to see her husband for sure, but she was happy as those poor souls that went through a shipwreck but reached the land covered with brine and thankful when they find themselves on firm ground and out of danger. Even so was her husband welcome to her. We're not really talking about great love and affection here. We're talking about safety. Now Penelope felt safe. And she's not really sad when he informs her that he'll have to go on another journey. She's more, okay, fine, yeah, sure, whatever the gods want. Just let's clear up Ithaca for now. Let's make sure I am safe, and then it's up to you. So Odysseus goes on another journey, remarries there, fights a war, and all this time Penelope doesn't follow her husband. She enjoys her freedom and her agency, being the queen of Ithaca. She wasn't weeping on cliffs for his return. She never did. Not during his first journey, not during his second journey. And when he returned from his second journey to the west, and was killed by his own son from Circe, Penelope had no problem whatsoever to marry the son Odysseus had with Circe and live with Circe on her island. And Circe married Penelope's son from Odysseus, so they lived in a kind of a happy foursome. If you lost the thread, don't worry, it's very weird. There's Penelope, and here is her son from Odysseus. His name is Telemachus, right? And there's Circe, and her son from Odysseus, and his name is Telegonus. So Telegonus kills Odysseus in a very Greek way. He kills Odysseus, and then Odysseus dies for like 24 hours, and they have this reunion. Oh my God, I'm your father. Oh, I'm your son. Oh, but I just killed you. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take your body to my mother, the witch. I'm gonna take your wife and your other son to my mother, the witch. And then there we're gonna do this little marriage crisscross when Penelope marries Telegonus and Circe marries Telemachus, and that's pretty much it. Except Penelope even had a son with Telegonus. So I can't say that she really was killed with regret and grief for Odysseus. And yes, Circe gave everybody from this happy foursome youth and immortality, and no, Odysseus was not invited to this new party. Think about it that way too. Circe made Telemachus and Penelope immortal, but she didn't do that for Odysseus. So I guess we can clearly see Circe's preferences here. And I'm not saying that those women hated Odysseus. No, I just doubt they loved him. Liked, maybe, but loved? Why Penelope remained faithful then? Because she wanted her agency. Because unmarried, she was queen, and if she was to marry, even just take a lover, that would make her lose her freedom. It would basically enslave her. So were the rules of ancient Greece. Being Odysseus' wife is great. Being Odysseus' widow is even better, because it gave her rights and agency, and becoming Antinous' wife was like becoming his pug, becoming the same thing that Odysseus was to Calypso, where and when you'll be fed, maybe even loved, dressed the way your owner wants to dress you. And that's pretty much it. And I know that today many people would call it their dream scenario, because you don't have to worry about anything, right? You'll be fed, you'll be dressed, undressed, bedded, and the cycle will restart. I understand that some people are crushed with financial problems. Others cannot find a decent job. Some suffer with health issues, and everyone tends to wish for a mommy or a daddy that will solve all their problems with one little gesture. But there's nothing happy about being a bug. I know life can be very hard at times. Maybe this video will help you a little if you remember that there's one thing worse than having the full responsibility for all your problems. And this terrible thing is having no responsibility whatsoever. When we have no responsibilities, we have no agency. And when we lose our agency, we lose any possibility of happiness. Because no one can be happy in a world where nothing you do matters. This is why Odysseus was eager to escape Calypso, was eager to meet all the dangers with his chest, just to feel again that what he does and what he says have an impact on the world, tiny as it might be, but it has an impact. The loss of agency is one of the most maddening things, and all the shadows of the dead in the underworld lament exactly that, the loss of their agency. And although it's not always easy to enjoy yours, when times get tough, remember Odysseus weeping for 7 long years, his golden shackles. Try to find solace in the fact that you have your agency and you can impact the world even when it doesn't look like it. If you like what you hear, don't allow YouTube algorithms to divide us. Come join me on our Telegram and subscribe here on YouTube. And also, have a good day.